Here's another video for the struggling puppy parents out there. Let's start with 5 signs you are making your experience harder than it needs to be. Number 1, your puppy bites constantly, and everything you have tried to do, from making a yelping noise to ignoring them to punishing them, just seems to make it worse. 2, they've started running away or ducking out of your reach when you approach, or maybe even sneaking off to another room to poop where you can't see them. 3, every time you try to do a training session, they don't learn much and they either end up biting you or walking away, even if you're using really good treats. 4, taking them for a walk can be really frustrating and disappointing because they totally blow you off, or they keep stopping to sit and stare at people, or they bite you or the leash. It sort of feels like they're in control, not you. 5, your other pets are not adjusting well, and their feelings about the puppy seem to be getting worse because they keep getting attacked and chewed on. If any of those sound familiar, I'm willing to bet you feel like you spend 90% of your time saying, "No, don't do that," and you don't know why you bother because they never listen anyway. You've probably put a lot of focus into exercising them because a tired dog is a good dog, as they say, and teaching them obedience commands and making sure they see you as the leader. And all that is doing is just stressing you out and preventing you from actually enjoying life with your puppy. And look, I get it, and you're not alone. I mean, we specialize in helping people overcome the puppy blues, or the what the fuck was I thinking phase, as we like to call it. So I am happy to be the first to tell you that this shit can be tough. But does it have to be this tough? Maybe not. All of those symptoms we just talked about are signs that you might be making some mistakes that are making your puppy's behavior worse. Hey, this is Jake from the online dog training school, the 3 Lost Dogs Academy. Let's talk about the top 10 most common mistakes we see our new students making when they first come to us. Now, remember what I said in the last video: mistakes do not equal permanent damage. And I'm not judging. I mean, I have made every mistake on this list. And in fact, if you have been making any of these mistakes, that's actually a good thing, because it means there's a solution to your problem, and this is not just the way life with a puppy has to be. So as long as you change your approach to stop these mistakes from happening and stop the behavior from getting worse, you are all good. And most of the things we're about to talk about are actually things that the dog training industry has been advising people to do for years, so I guess I apologize on behalf of my industry. I feel like I'm constantly apologizing on behalf of my industry. What can I say? It's kind of a dumpster fire. So sometimes these things on this list can work. For instance, we hear all the time that people did item number 1 or item number 6 with their first dog and everything worked out fine, but this new puppy is a totally different story. And if you're still watching this video and you're not just here for my sunny personality, I'm guessing they ain't working out for you. Enough of that, on to the list. Mistake number 1, that thing where you yelp or you say ouch when the puppy bites. The idea here is that the noise mimics the correction another dog might give if a puppy bites them too hard. It's great in theory, but yeah, I raised a Belgian Malinois puppy, aka an actual land shark, and you can bet that making a squeaky noise would not have made her stop biting. There's also a variation on that yelping thing where you sit in an enclosed space with a puppy, and every time they bite too hard, you say ouch, and you get up, leave the room, come back, rinse, repeat. You have to do this like 50 times in a 5-minute session. I actually taught this myself in the first version of our online puppy training program, but we eventually scrapped it because, well, it might, I guess, technically work if you are consistent enough. It's such an infuriating experience for everyone that it's just not worth it. So I'm giving you permission to stop doing this. You're welcome. Number 2, ignoring them when they bite. If you tried that, it probably lasted all of 3 seconds because it's very hard to ignore a cannonball with needle-sharp teeth sinking those teeth into your flesh. And for reasons I won't get into today, otherwise this entire video would be about biting, ignoring them when they bite can just increase the distress they're experiencing, which makes them bite more. Let me know if you want me to make a video about puppy biting and why pretty much every training method out there for it is deeply problematic. 3, too much handling, cuddling, or getting in their face. And this can be really disappointing because when you get a puppy, all you want to do is cuddle them and squeeze them and tell you how much you love them, but that can be really frustrating for a lot of puppies. When one of our Academy members, Catherine, first came to us with her puppy Vinny, she could not touch him at all without him biting her. It was like the worst case of puppy biting we had ever seen. And it turns out that Vinny had come from a rescue foster home where he lived with a couple kids who were around age 4, and these kids acted like kids, and they carried him around all the time and roughhouse with him and just sort of drove him crazy. As best we can tell, by the time this puppy got to Catherine, he was completely touched out. He had learned that human hands approaching meant he was going to have no say in what happened to him, and I don't know about you, but that would also drive me pretty crazy too. Number 4, exhausting yourself by exercising the crap out of them in an attempt to wear them out. A tired dog is a good dog, right? Well, if your puppy gets more hyper after exercise, or if they always seem unable to settle down, then throwing more exercise and more playtime at them is not really the right answer, and it's probably making things worse. Think of how a 3-year-old kid might have a screaming meltdown after a couple hours of exercising in Disneyland. Of course, exercise is important, but the key is in choosing the right kind of activities and structuring those activities in a way that helps the puppy calm down and get ready for a nap instead of just getting more and more amped up. Number 5, walking your puppy the way you would walk an adult dog. If taking them for a walk is really frustrating because they just plant their butt and refuse to move, or if they just completely ignore you, or they bite you, or they bite the leash, I'm guessing that you are attempting the traditional dog walk. That is, walking in a relatively straight line at a brisk pace for 15 or more minutes. Puppies under 6 months, and sometimes older if they didn't learn the right skills as babies, are just not at a developmental stage where that is appropriate. And if you force it, it may lead to aggression or fear issues, or just an inability to focus as an adult. The way we teach our students to walk their puppies doesn't really look anything like a normal dog walk. It's all about exploring and teaching them about the world in a way that makes them capable of paying attention to you despite distractions. 6, scolding them or using physical corrections. Tapping them on the nose, spraying them with a squirt bottle, pinning them on their back, stuff like that. Sometimes that just makes them more wild and makes them growl and bite harder, but sometimes it does work to put an immediate stop to the behavior, but it creates other problems for you. For one thing, you can't control the negative associations your puppy is making or the emotional conditioning that's happening. There's a good chance your puppy won't associate the correction with their behavior, they'll associate it with you. They may become hand shy or avoidant or aggressive, or have a hard time learning to come when called and pay attention to you, or they might start having accidents where you can't see them. Number 7, chasing them around to pull forbidden objects out of their mouth. And look, I'm not saying that you should just sit back and watch as your puppy eats your shoe or whatever, but if you feel like you are always saying, no, don't do that, and taking things away from them, something has got to change, because this dynamic is a big contributor to problems like food aggression or resource guarding or not listening or running away when you call them. And it makes it very hard to build this trusting, loving bond you're going for. And a directly related mistake is number 8, giving them too much freedom too soon, like letting the puppy have the run of the house or letting them have access to your kids when either the dog or the kids are in a crazy mood. This lets them both practice unwanted behavior, and too much freedom also means that your puppy will get into more trouble, which means you have to do things like chase them down to pull things out of their mouth. Number 9, giving them too much access to your older dog, or not enough access. If you got this puppy when you already had an adult dog at home, I would almost bet my life that 3 things will happen. Number 1, that puppy is going to constantly harass the older dog. Number 2, the older dog is going to seem a bit out of sorts or maybe depressed. And number 3, you are going to feel like the worst person in the world for doing this to your poor beloved dog. And despite how it feels, this doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't have gotten the puppy in the first place. This is just part of the experience. And when students and clients who are in this position first come to us for help, we can pretty reliably divide them into one of 2 camps. There are those who have sort of been letting the puppy loose in the house with the adult dog by default and just sort of hoping they work it out themselves. Or on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there are those who have been so worried about potential negative interactions between the dogs that they have kept them completely separate for like 2 months. Neither scenario is ideal. Puppies are exhausting, and we don't want our adult dog to be subjected to that all day long. We don't want to put them in a position where they feel like they have to escalate to harsher and harsher corrections, because repeated negative interactions do not bode well for their future relationship. On the other hand, keeping them completely separate doesn't allow them to build a relationship at all, and it can just make the puppy more and more obsessed, because not only is the adult dog super are cool, they're also mysterious and forbidden. You gotta find a better balance, like letting them interact when the puppy is in a relatively calm mood and keeping them physically separate when the puppy is in hyper attack mode, which is a term we use in our puppy program to refer to the times when puppies get extra wild and crazy. It also means finding bonding activities that they can do together without directly interacting, and allowing them direct interaction while you watch the older dog for signs that they're getting tired so that you can separate them before things get hairy. And last but certainly not least, number 10, trying to get them to follow commands or walk nicely on leash when they are distracted in public. If your training has been primarily about obedience commands like sit, lie down, come, heel, loose leash walking, and your puppy started out listening pretty good but now not so much, or if you have to say the command so many times that it just turns into white noise and you can't get them to listen even when you're waving cookies in their face, that's probably a sign that you are focusing on the wrong things or trying to level up too quickly. I mean, obedience commands are useful, of course, but to me, they're a low priority when it comes to raising a puppy. Again, it's more important to let them explore the world in a way that makes them capable of listening to you, and you also need to work on some simpler foundation training stuff first. Because trying to get your puppy to listen by practicing obedience commands is like trying to build a house by starting with the roof. We need some foundation and some walls first. All right, so if you recognize yourself in any of these things, that's great. That means there's hope, and maybe you can see how some of these actions might have contributed to your puppy's obnoxious behavior. And again, this isn't even your fault. I mean, a lot of this is just the way that we've always been taught to do things, and making mistakes means that you're trying, which is what really matters. So that's all I have for you now. I will see you next time, or if you want more regular content from us, we are pretty active on Instagram these days. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.